You've seen Glenn Murcutt's MPavilion, and a few of you have said, where are the other ones? Can we have a look? So today we're at another MPavilion.
This is the MPavilion 2015 by Amanda Levete.
Formerly Future Systems.
Formerly Future Systems. For those of you who don't know Future Systems, Andrew, being a cricket fan, you can explain, and a Future System fan.
I like cricket, but I'm not a big fan of Lords. I like Future Systems because they are super sci-fi nerds. Future Systems, Jan Kaplinski.
Kaplinski?
And David Nixon originally made the firm, and they were really into space, and they were on a good thing. They were on a safe bet, which was there would be a moon base, there would be a Mars base, there would be these space stations, and they wanted to be the architects that designed our future in space.
Hence,
our
Future Systems.
Future Systems. They both used to work for Foster for a while before heading out on their own. They've always been interested in new ways of building and new materials, and both deceased now.
So Amanda Levete was the wife of late Jan, and she started out on her own. I've seen one of her project in Lisbon, and well, that project is a beautiful response to the context in the waterfront in Lisbon. Anyone who's been to Lisbon know how much of a mess the waterfront is, but that project is pretty clever.
And is that the space type of high tech that Future Systems is known for?
I don't know. It's pretty curvy building with beautiful tiles. I don't think
that
it's...
sounds spacey.
Yeah.
Curvy building, and it's got tiles like ceramic tiles they use on the space shuttle to deflect all the heat.
Yeah, could be. Anyway.
Yeah, this has definitely got some space age stuff about it. It's all made out of carbon fibre and fiberglass.
Yeah, 2mm fiberglass.
Pretty cool.
Let's have a look.
So if you haven't seen our Glenn Murcutt MPavilion video, you should click there and have a look for it. So that was last year's MPavilion, now gone. Now it's just an empty site. So the 2015 pavilion, this one, has been relocated to the end of Collins Street down in Docklands in just this strange little triangular leftover bit of space that's now a park, surrounded by pretty mediocre apartments that fill Docklands. Not only am I a fan of Future Systems, I'm also a fan of Modular Systems. And that's what this is. Like, it's a single system. You can see this Y bar that's actually made from carbon fibre. 3 posts, all made with carbon fibre, that actually runs electrical cables through them to get to some lighting on top. And then you've got the 2mm fiberglass panel. And that one system then can be repeated to create this lovely forest, as Amanda calls it. A lovely forest based on that one modular system. Then you've got some spots, come over here, avoid the Coke can, where then some of the modules start to meet. You can see where some of them connect through, and so the pole is shared by 2 modules, and then every now and then there's one that's actually left out because there's obviously a clear structural path between these 2 poles, so you don't need that one. And then, come inside. You can see where she started to connect a few of these modules to make a bigger span. So, you know, you've got that one sort of basic module, and then she ends up with a bigger module, but it's the same structural system. And then this one goes across to what? 2, 4, 6 posts.
They're meant to sway, some of them, yeah? It's meant to respond to the climate, you know, it's meant to sway in the wind gently. It's just like real trees.
Yeah, so there's a bit of semantics that goes with this. Like, I think this is a really lovely pavilion, just the way that it is. And like a lot of projects, when you hear the architect talk about it, you start to get annoyed, because there's lots of talk about nature and these being trees and this being a forest and then responding to climate, but I assume what she means by that is just simply some of it sways in the wind quite beautifully.
And it's meant to offer dapple light.
Yeah, meant to offer dappled light. Well, it offers a difference of light just simply because of the overlapping forms.
I think it's actually more interesting now that the panels are no longer as clear, so they offer more shade in the Australian sun. And I think, in fact, some of the dirt on the top actually adds to the mottled irregularity of what nature offers, really.
Yeah, and fiberglass also it ages at different rates, or it discolors in different ways, so you get some difference happening now. So I actually think it's getting more interesting the older it gets. Kev had a bit of a problem with the fact that it was collecting dirt. I don't care personally. Like, there's no gutters here. It's not a tin roof with gutters where you have to really worry about water shedding everything. Eventually there'll be a big rain and that'll wash it off.
No, my comment is the fact that I think a lot of high-tech work requires a lot of high-tech maintenance.
Yeah, but I don't think this is an example of that problem. Throw in some Zaha Hadid Opera House here. All right, so because it's carbon fiber, is flexible. That's part of its strength. So that means we come to one of these. So this is a standard module. That's a fair bit of movement. Look at that. So the idea is
there's a little water coming off.
Oh, is it? Responding to climate. In other words, it blows around in the wind. But then when you get into the more central ones, where there's lots of connection between the different triangulated forms, you just can't get that much movement. It actually flexes, but it doesn't wobble that much. It's actually quite surprising how strong it is. But I guess that's the thing with carbon fibre. It's super light, but incredibly strong. It's so windy today. It's really slippery, this stuff. I can't climb it like usual. Just checking out the details.
Monkey.
Oh, it's good.
Talking about system too, this reminds me of a 1958 Spanish expert pavilion by Corrales Morazun, which has now been relocated in Madrid. It used to be in Brussels. Unfortunately, that one, it's pretty derelict now.
Have you been?
No, I haven't, because I heard it's hard to get into it. It's, just graffiti everywhere, and
Right.
But it has similar aesthetic, I guess. But that's also about system and modularity that can be adapted and used.
Yeah.
This is different though. This is a lot more high-tech engineering. I mean, there's a focus on development and engineering of materials, and to see what it can achieve architecturally.
It's actually quite a lot like industrial design more than architecture, in terms of they've worked really hard on the single module, and now that they've got these probably available to cast, they could keep tuning them out. It's probably cheaper the more that you produce, because they've treated it as almost like a product, like a manufactured product.
So really it's about this set of system defining a place, really. It's less a building than it is about, hey, let's make a place by putting these things here.
Of all of the pavilions, this is probably the one that's the loosest in terms of, is it a building? Well, it's not really. Like, I think there is a lot of thought in the way that you shed the water, but it is only loosely defining a space. I think the other cool thing about the modules as well is the flooring. The ground cover is, they're all triangulated timber panels, but they don't obey the same edge of the building that you saw in a lot of the other pavilions. So you can see where each of the connections obeys a rule, how it hits the triangle, but then when it no longer hits the triangle and just goes out into the grass, it's still following the same modules, but there's something really beautiful about the way it just goes into the landscape. A big challenge for this one is how to stop water from just inundating the pavilion. So obviously this is meant to have 50 to 100 people in there at certain functions. What happens if it's raining? It's actually really clever how they've designed this, how they've gotten that module and they've overlapped it and actually forward in one direction, but it's incredibly subtle. Like, I don't think you noticed at first.
Yeah, I think people would just walk in here and look like there's a bunch of random sticks.
Random architectural shit.
Yes.
But it's incredibly thoughtful how something so simple is actually dealing with pretty sophisticated issues. Like, how many times have architects gotten just shedding water wrong?
Yeah.
A
lot of architects have always tried and talked about, recreating forests.
Analogies are always interesting. They can always be used quite clumsily. They often can be used quite clumsily by architects. So the idea of being inspired by a forest being inspired by the types of lights that sort of comes through leaves and dapples onto the ground, is a really lovely analogy. I think that there's probably a lesson here for students in that you often hear students talking about things in quite an animate way, as though that's all that needs to be said. These are trees. This is like a forest. The end. There's a difference between being inspired by something and trying to emulate it, and then coming into the programmatic issues of how do I then have people here, what type of enclosure is it, how do people meet and talk. That kind of thing isn't solved by your analogy. So at some point you have to say, well, this is my point of inspiration, then you have to get on with actually creating good architecture.
And I think it's very easy to just literally, and we've seen examples of it around the world, they're just things that are just trying to be fake trees and whatever. Yeah. I think there needs to be, I think architects look for, good architects look for a certain level of abstraction. So there's removal from actual physical form of what the inspiration came from, but really trying to truly understand some of the qualities of what make the trees. For example, the very fact that these things sway, I think that's quite interesting, that there is this understanding of, well, they're not static things, they actually do move as part of the experience.
But I think to judge the success of a building, you need to be able to then remove those analogies, and not be able to rely on it. And I think this building does that. Like, I don't need to know that Amanda was inspired by trees. I actually think it's quite a sophisticated structure based on very simple principles. The fact that she was inspired by a tree, that's great. Lovely. So each pavilion is at the gardens for 3 months, and then it's a custodian takes it over, and it's gone to Monash and a place like that. This one's ended up down at Docklands. Kev, what do you think of the location?
Well, it's Docklands, which is a strange context in itself.
Yeah. That was a rat! A rat just ran across in front of us.
Really?
He's down here. He went under there.
Huh.
Welcome to Docklands, full of rats.
It is also a weird corner where I think the streets it's a sort of weird triangular site. Because this building, compared to the Glen Murcutt version, there is a lot less directionality to it. It can really start to interact with the surrounding context.
I think that's an interesting point, comparing it to Murcutt. Murcutt obviously was trying to face north, make this little gateway towards the city, and that's interesting. It's very Greek and formal. I like this one, how it just sort of bleeds out into the landscape. And this seems to be an appropriate place for it. This is a very odd place. Docklands is very odd, but this one seems to work quite well. The other thing too is this leftover bit of land is full of gum trees, and a lot of them are actually quite young. So there's a bit of a connection here, I'd say. Like when you look, especially from where we are, there's 6 or 8 trees, no more than that, 12 trees right in front of us. Then you get all of these.
And there's some younger saplings over there too.
Yeah.
Something about maintenance as well. I think you mentioned that this is, just like Design for Space, is meant to be really robust. It needs to be really strong to deal with that. And I think this site is relatively hostile. It's commercial. There's some residential around, but it's really not well used, I would say.
Yeah. Actually, that's one of the reasons I like it. It's kind of been an intuitive response. I like the fact that it's spindly. It looks like delicate. It's actually like this little antidote to those other built forms. It's sort of the antithesis of them. It looks like it'll blow away in the wind, and I quite like that.
Wanted to see what the lighting is like at night, so I'm here to check it out. It's pretty dim, but it is probably enough for an urban park setting. It's not too bright, which is nice, but I wonder if they actually had brighter lights during the events when they were running as a pavilion, when they had events. There's a lot of light that's borrowed from the street. So the LED lighting comes through the tubes, the columns, up onto the top, and the light is coming through the fiberglass panels diffused. So it is very much like it during the day where the light is diffused. So it's keeping the same lighting idea through the scheme. It's pretty clever. The original render that was put out, one of the images had a person just sitting there on the floor. I think when they started working as a pavilion, they obviously had the coffee carts and other chairs and stuff around, somewhere in the middle.
Yeah.
But I think it was meant to be It's like a bit like a picnic, just sitting there on the ground.
Yeah.
That's why there's a lot of effort, I guess, put on the deck.
Yeah, the deck's quite lovely. I also like their triangles. Do you like the 2015 MPavilion by Amanda Levete?
Have you been?
What do you think of it then versus now? Because it's a lot darker now. Leave some comments. Leave a like or a dislike. We're okay with those. Tell your friends. Please subscribe. We love you guys.
And thanks for the suggestion for the series.
Good one. We'll see you in the next one. I got myself right in the nuts then.